right. So here is I don't want to say fun one, but it's basically showing people to be absolute hypocrites. Specifically Nancy Mace, who, if you recall, has this personal crusade against at least Sarah McBride, if not all trans people. Well, apparently she's been called out by other conservatives. And now, normally I would never side with Matt Walsh on anything because he's a horrible person, but in this regard, I've got to hand it to him. Even though I don't agree with his conclusion, but I gotta agree with his logic. So anyway, conservatives rage at Nancy Mace for invading opposite-sex spaces like she claims trans people do. And this is where it gets fun. Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, has gotten a lot of attention in the media these past several months for her crusade against out Representative Sarah McBride, a Democrat from Delaware, the first out transgender person elected to Congress. But now conservative Daily Wire podcaster Matt Walsh is outraged at Mace for doing what she railed against: entering a space that conservatives believe should be the exclusive domain of people assigned one sex at birth. And of course, that sexist male. Mace introduced a resolution banning trans women from using women's facilities at the Capitol shortly after McBride was elected, a move that she admitted was targeted at McBride despite trans people visiting and working at Congress for decades without issue. She posted hundreds of times to social media about her antipathy toward trans people, arguing that trans women are actually men and that they are a threat to women. And I've mentioned plenty of times, especially during this discussion, how stupid that is.
Call from the guy.
And yeah, my phone is ringing.
Call from the
Yesterday, Mace brought up one of her past accomplishments in a post on X. She is the first woman to ever graduate from the Citadel, a public military college in South Carolina that banned women until a federal court in 1995 forced it to stop discriminating. She argued that this is what motivates her dislike of transgender people. And you can just see where this is going. I didn't fight like hell to become the first woman to graduate from the Citadel just for some man in a miniskirt to take away that achievement. She posted on X with a picture of herself in college. Protecting women's accomplishments isn't a political talking point for me. It's personal. And of course, there's so much wrong with that because we aren't talking about a drag queen. We aren't talking about drag, which is what a man in a miniskirt would be. That would be cross-dressing. That would be drag. That is not what a trans person is. A trans person was born one sex, but feels like they were born in the wrong body. Not the same thing. Anyway, this is where I love Matt Walsh, and I thought I would never in a million years utter that sentence. Anti-trans activist and self-described theocratic fascist Matt Walsh took issue with Mace's statement, arguing that Mace did just what she accuses trans people of. She entered a previously male-only space in the name of diversity and inclusion, which is another thing today's conservatives are railing against, DEI. because women don't seem to, especially white women, don't seem to think they're included in DEI for whatever reason. This is showing her hypocrisy or her stupidity, one of the two. Because yeah, you did the very thing that you're accusing other people of doing. That is the exact argument trans-identifying males use to invade female spaces. I'm not sure he understands how words work. Because a trans-identifying male, is he saying males, is he saying women who were born male? Is that what he's trying to say? Because trans-identifying males, to me, sounds like he's confusing trans men and trans women. Anyway, Walsh raged. Nancy Mace was literally a beneficiary of a DEI program. It's a ridiculous and tone-deaf thing to brag about in this moment. 100% agree. Granted, his solution is that she shouldn't have been given that opportunity, most likely, but 100% agree on this logic. 100% agree. And I'm pretty sure that'll be taken out of context at some point. We rightly lament the death of female-only spaces, but male-only spaces died long before, thanks in part to efforts of Nancy Mace, he continued. Okay, totally not the same thing. Number one, male-only spaces do still exist. It's just that they have to exist in the same way female-only spaces exist. Like locker rooms, which I'm surprised that this schmuck didn't point out that trans men are allowed in men's locker rooms. So that should be a proof that male-only spaces don't exist anymore. I'm surprised he didn't point that out. He's talking about the Citadel. Because, I mean, if you're going to rail against trans people, at least point out that you're aware that trans men exist. But nobody seems to care about trans men. It's all about trans women. Because apparently being born with a penis means that you are destined to be a sexual predator or something. I'm honestly baffled by how these people think, and think specifically about men and males. This idea that all males are sexual predators, they are all violent. I'm unsure where we're going with this, but it's just ew. You're shitting on your own sex. You're shitting on your own gender. It's just mind-boggling. Anyway, feminism set the stage for transgenderism, he wrote. No, it did not. No, it did not. Trans people have existed long before the concept of feminism was a thing. Just because they weren't able to live out in Christian society as a trans person, doesn't mean they didn't exist. After all, look at the indigenous population, especially of this country. Two-spirit is a thing. What the hell do you think that means? So no, feminism did not set the stage for transgenderism. That's not an ideology. People don't choose to be trans. That is just something they are. The feminists were the first to deny the fundamental and inherent difference between the sexes and the value of sex segregation in many aspects of society. No, they did not. Susan B. Anthony, I believe, was anti-abortion. So no, she did not. That is not, just because they don't agree with what you suggest is the difference between the sexes, just because there are many things that women can do that many men used to think only men could do, doesn't mean that they have denied it. Women get pregnant. Actually, females get pregnant. They don't deny that. Can trans men get pregnant? Depending on how long they've been on hormones, whether they still possess a uterus and ovaries. And some trans people freeze their eggs, they freeze their sperm, or whatever they call it for the sperm, in the sperm bank, so they can have children later. So no, nobody's denying anything. Just because there are women out there who want to serve in the military and become military officers doesn't mean that they're denying that they're female. They just don't see that being female excludes them from the military and excludes them from being officers. There's nothing about being an officer that's inherently male. Unless you want to claim that women are naturally pacifists and men are naturally aggressive, which, first off, is a complete misreading of what the military is, because defending the U.S., defending the country, is not the same as attacking anything that moves. So, yeah. Anyway, where was I? Feminists are largely to blame for the very problem that some of them now campaign against. What are feminists campaigning against? Oh, you're talking about TERFs. Yeah, they suck. Most feminists aren't TERFs because most feminists understand what gender equality means, and that includes trans people. So if that's what he's talking about, or if he's railing against Nancy Mace as a feminist because she's upset that she benefited from non-discrimination programs, whereas she's now closing the doors on others. I honestly am not sure what he means by this. But yeah, I wouldn't call Nancy Mace a feminist. I would call her a TERF. Walsh wasn't the only one to call out Mace for attending the military school. Prominent conservative broadcaster Jesse Kelly, so prominent I've never heard of the person, used an anti-trans slur to make his point. Exactly where do these trannies, and that's the slur, get off trying to shatter the standards and history of our institutions, Kelly wrote. The only one who should be allowed to do that is you. Okay. So that was sarcasm about, women can be allowed to enter men's spaces, but trans people can't. Now, again, discrimination is bad no matter who it's against. There is nothing about the military that screams men only. I mean, there are plenty of men who've attacked female cadets simply because they are so full of aggression, because they think that's what the military is for, that they're the alpha male and their job is to attack people and be violent and be all the worst qualities of man. In other words, toxic. And so that includes attacking women. Because you're not supposed to be protecting women, you're supposed to be attacking them for daring to not know their place. So on the one hand, they bring up good points, just in a very douchey way. But yeah, Nancy Mace has been caught being a hypocrite, claiming that she's allowed to, that discrimination against women is bad, but discrimination against trans people isn't, even though the arguments are literally the same. So, yeah, because there's nothing about a trans woman using the women's bathroom that's inherently scary. You have probably used them plenty with a trans woman and never know it because you did not know that she was trans. And again, the fact that they're going after trans women but not trans men is some weird way of transphobes basically claiming how horrible men are in general. That if you are born with a penis, you have to hold yourself back from being a sexual predator. Because if you didn't hold yourself back, you would be doing what these people that you claim trans women are doing, is to invade women's spaces so you can attack them. It's the same argument it's a similar argument that's used against atheists when people ask, where do you get your morality from if not from God? That is basically telling on yourself. You are basically saying that the only reason you are holding back is because you're afraid of being punished by some imaginary, invisible person. Not because you are a decent person, but because you are afraid of being punished. That is not the flex you think it is. And it's the same thing here. Okay, it's great that you're pointing out that Nancy Mace is a hypocrite, but all of these people's push against trans women, because it is, like I said, mostly trans women, they completely ignore trans men. They are basically telling on themselves that the women who do this are basically saying, we don't trust any man, we're man haters, because we think all men are potential predators. And these men are basically saying, if it weren't for laws, if it weren't for my fear of punishment, I would totally attack a woman. I would totally rape a woman. Which, again, not the flex you think it is. So, yeah. That is the end of that article. And, so, yeah. Matt Walsh is still a horrible person. This Jesse Kelly is a horrible person. But in this regard, they bring up very valid points. And more people should point out conservative hypocrisy, because it's usually conservatives who do the hypocrisy. We don't like this group of people, but we're going to deny them using the same arguments that we use to allow ourselves to get ahead. So, yeah. Yeah, one of the few times I agree with Matt Walsh, and actually this will probably be the only time I agree with him. But anyway, with that, I will see you guys in the next video.